Welcome, bros and brosophiends. My name's Albrecht von Stollen, and today I'm gonna be reviewing episode 9 of Taisho Otome Otogibanashi. Is this episode gonna be good? Who's Sakura again? Before anything else, let's go! Something tells me that this is gonna be a music-oriented episode. The episode starts where we left off last week. Kotori showing up in Tamahiko's place and she asks Suzuki for help on what love is. I haven't mentioned it in last week's review, but the Shiratori siblings do not sound like they're talking in standard Japanese. This is because the Shiratori siblings are talking in the Kansai dialect, rather than the standard Tokyo dialect. Anime characters who do use this dialect of Japanese include Mariel from the Log Horizon series and the entire cast of Lovely Complex. The former is because in Japan, the Kansai dialect is considered as funny and talkative and lively. Why? Because starting from the Taisho period, which is from 1912 to 1926, comedians started popping up in the city of Osaka. As for Lovely Complex, that story is set in the city of Osaka where the Kansai dialect is used. It's quite ironic, really. Prior to 1868, the standard form of Japanese was the Kansai dialect. But all that changed when the Emperor of Japan at the time decided to move his capital to Tokyo following the Meiji Restoration. Because of this and the whole thing with comedians from Osaka that I've mentioned earlier, the Tokyo dialect became standard Japanese and the Kansai dialect became associated with comedy. Kotori tells Yuzuki why she's doing this, because she's writing a column in a girls' magazine and Yuzuki says that she reads that magazine. Kotori says that she's been asked about love by her readers and she figured to write a love song even though she has no idea on what love is. I can tell you this much, it's a whole lot tamer than what we have now. Idiotic columns written by idiots. As to where Kotori got her idea about love, she did say that Hakaru told her of one thing, that Yuzuki and Tamahiko are in love with each other. Kotori then asks Yuzuki for help and mentions that she can do it by song. Now we're seeing Kotori chibis floating around and it's just so cute. Also, Kotori is just so wholesome compared to some people nowadays. Tamahiko notices that something is off with Hakaru. Do I sense foreshadowing in here? Yuzuki shows the Shiratori siblings a guest room where Kotori can write her songs in. Kotori asks for Hakaru's help before he says something half-hearted and leaves. Hakaru's being avoidant. We are treated to a montage of Kotori observing Tamahiko and Yuzuki before the village kids and Ryo show up to Tamahiko's place. Kotori shows up and the kids can't believe that they're seeing Kotori in person and they go talk to her. When Tamahiko notices this, he improvises on the spot and tells the kids that there's a special lesson with Kotori. The kids are happy about this and Kotori teaches the kids how to sing. For some reason, Yuzuki and Ryo also join in. All of a sudden, Kotori remembers something. This is gonna be important, isn't it? After this, we go to high school where Hakaru helps Tamahiko get along with his classmates and then the two of them go to the wooded part of the school where they talk about Kotori. Tamahiko says that while Kotori gets along with the village kids, she has problems in writing that song. One can practice being creative, but one cannot force the creativity out, Miss Kotori. With that, Hakaru leaves again. What's with this guy? He always avoids. We then cut to Tamahiko's place where Yuzuki brings out dessert and Kotori's rolling on the floor before rolling into a wall. After that pun, Kotori asks on how Yuzuki had met Tamahiko and we see a recap of the events so far, complete with Yuzuki blushing. Kotori mentions that this is similar to how she is with music and even says that Hakaru was the first among them to like music. After the eye catch, Tamahiko tells Yuzuki that he's been noticing something, that Hakaru has been avoiding Kotori. Yuzuki mentions to Tamahiko that Hakaru liked music first. After this, we see Tamahiko and Hakaru eating lunch at school. Hakaru tells Tamahiko about his origin. Apparently, Hakaru did indeed get into singing when he and Kotori were kids and Kotori did join in. But one day, he fell ill and Kotori continued singing while he went ahead to recover. She promised him that once he got better, they'll sing together. After 7 years, Kotori becomes a famous singer and Hakaru did recover. He tells Tamahiko that trying to catch up to Kotori would be too much for him now after so long. Tamahiko says that he can relate to what Haku has been going through, and we get a bit of a recap on what's happened to him. The visuals in this part are quite effective in showing us how Tamahiko understood the events of the last few episodes. It's not a direct flashback like what happened with Yuzuki earlier. Tamahiko tells Haku that he's a good friend and that motivates Haku to catch up with Kotori. I'll be talking more about this later. After this, we see that it's market day in Chiba. Apparently, there's a concert, a debut for Kotori's new song. A large crowd had assembled and one of the kids announces that before Kotori sings her new song, there's a last-minute performance. It's Haku! He sings his cover of Kotori's song and Kotori is touched by it before the two of them sing together and the audience likes it. Now, I want both the Haku cover and the Shiratori duet on YouTube. After this, Kotori sings her new song. This is a lot better than modern pop songs nowadays. Why? Because the average modern pop song is utterly degenerate. The day ends and Tamahiko and Yuzuki are riding on a bicycle. She tries confessing her feelings towards Tamahiko but she couldn't do it. Normally, this is an annoying cliche in romance anime. But as this anime does follow the manga for the most part, I can say that this anime will avoid that cliche. Yuzuki then asks Tamahiko to teach her how to ride a bike. Tamahiko declines, saying that he can take her everywhere from now on and the episode ends. This episode follows the rest of chapter 28 and most of chapter 29 from the manga. The main difference is that in the manga, Haku is singing with Kotori inside of Tamahiko's house at night. But in this episode, Haku sings alongside Kotori in Kotori's concert. The part about Tamaki's death in the manga is cut out because the Great Kanto earthquake hasn't happened yet. I mentioned Haku's origin earlier. This has some similarities with Tamahiko. Both were depressed due to something that had happened to them. We see more of Tamahiko being kind in this one as he had helped Haku gain confidence and catch up to Kotori. Haku's origin and Tamahiko helping him are quite relatable in this day and age as a lot of men are getting lonelier. Thus, this is a good character study on friendship among men. Also, I like how Tamahiko is able to improvise when something didn't happen as he had planned. I mentioned Kotori and creativity earlier. This is quite relatable to a lot of us, be it with making videos on YouTube, or writing a book, or something else which requires our creativity. We should not force this out because it ends up being half-hearted at best and downright impossible at worst. Instead, we can find it in the least expected of places. The songs in this episode are quite good. While I did find the full YouTube video of Kotori's new song, which I'll link in the description below, I'm still going to look for Haku's cover of Kotori's other song. I recommend this episode as a good way to understand how men are friends to each other, how we can find inspiration in the strangest of places at times, and because the songs here are quite wholesome. Come join me next week as I'll review episode 10. Please like, share, and subscribe.